Good morning, and welcome to Full Mental Bracket.
That's right. Full mental bracket, not a partial.
There's no halfness in our brackets. They're full on or nothing.
We're discovering things here.
Yes, we are so fancy, we have a fancy motto. Our motto is discovering the tools for success in everyday life.
I feel like, if we would have thought ahead, we could have had like little shovels and little things. We could have been like, that's what we do here.
We need to expand. Already, we need to expand the staff. We need a Foley artist that's like having a pickaxe and shovels in the background.
Add that to Brody's list.
Yeah, have a little buzzer. 5 o'clock, everybody go home. It's like, no, we just got started. All right.
So where do we start?
Well, I think I want to cover a couple things what we're going to do with this show. The idea behind the show is, as I mentioned, discovering the tools for success in everyday life.
Everyday life.
So I don't know about you, but I think one of the important parts is that we're discovering. It's not like we've got all the answers here. It's not like that we're gurus. Welcome to the Guru Podcast, where we fill your brain, your empty skull cavity, with our wisdom. Yeah. That's not really how we're doing this.
Yeah, I actually wanted to get away from that a little bit.
Okay. Because you're such a genius, you're tired of people coming to you.
Exactly. People come to me. They just flock.
He's got these first world problems.
Tell me your wisdom. I just wanted to be off the responsibility for at least an hour.
Well, I'm frequently told that I'm off, so this is kind of my standard mode. So we were just talking about some things in life. Not necessarily we've got it all figured out, but we kind of curate a journey as we kind of look through some different tools that we've discovered, some things we're investigating, some things that worked well for us, some things we've heard good things about, we want to try. Kind of have like real-life experiments, us and the audience, and just kind of see how it works.
Yeah. It's been a rediscovery for me, too, because years ago, I dabbled in this idea of your life being a journey and a set of events that can be strung together in meaningful ways and even helped young people string together some events in their life. And I'm really excited to see what happens here.
That sounds suspiciously like our first tool of stringing events together in a meaningful and significant package. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about the other word in our motto, success. So we're no Dave Ramsey here. We're not going to help you with your mortgage or help you win the lottery or any number of gurus and draft a Lambo because we're here to look at the multiple dimensions of success.
Yeah.
Because success is nebulous and it's individual. The key thing is you have to define your own success. Everyone does that bother you? It's like, hey, I'm going to teach you success. Like, how do we know we're talking about the same word?
Yeah, that's actually what goes through my mind when somebody tells me something like, do you feel like you've been successful? I'm like, yeah, I do. And then they tell me their story of success, and I'm like, that's not what I was thinking.
Well, it's an unexplored assumption. Yeah. It's like everyone knows that success means this to me,
right.
And everyone knows that success means that to you, but we're throwing that word back and forth. It doesn't mean the same thing at all.
But there does seem to be this common thread, and finding the common thread between two people having a conversation, I think that's what we want to do.
If we were talking about productive engagement, I'm all about that. That's a fancy critical thinking term I came across. See how smart? Okay. Guru moment. Productive engagement is where we put aside our agendas and our egos and we together seek the mutual truth instead of trying to own or win or destroy our opponent or whatever. It's not about scoring points.
Pinkies up when you say that.
Pinkies, yes. It's not about scoring points, but as much as actually trying to figure out what the other person's thinking and learn something from them.
Oh, learn?
Well, okay, there's a danger, listeners. You might accidentally learn something here, but don't say you weren't warned.
But that's what we're going for. We're going for
warning listeners? Learning. Okay.
Well, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it. So just real quick, and under the heading of learning, a couple dimensions of success. We talked about multiple dimensions of success, but just to throw it out there for people to chew on, I mean, financial is one of the dimensions of success, but also relational.
Relational, yeah.
What else you got?
Emotional.
I like it.
Mental.
Yes.
I think that fits with our name. What else you got?
Well, you've read all but the last. You've from memory, pulled out my entire list except for physical. I was going to put some physical health and strength.
That's what I do
at the end.
That's how I was with my tests. I would memorize everything except for there was like one. There was that one, and I would sit there, and people would be handing in their sheets, and I'm like, I just got that. And it would come to me eventually.
So, listeners, you can't see this, but I have a whole list. And Paul just recited the list in order without looking at my list.
It's that, what is that?
It's called malware on my computer. You spied it out.
Well, that's one way to say it.
So anyway, that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about. We'll probably end up talking more and more about stuff. But that's kind of the general overview of the show and what we're going to do. We're digging through stuff. We're going through everyday life, finding cool tools, seeing how they work, trying them on, doing experiments, talking about it.
I like the word hidden.
I like that too.
Yeah. Because I think that that's part of the learning process, right?
Yeah.
It's realizing that you haven't discovered everything yet.
Yeah, and I like the idea that it's hidden, but not like in this super mystical, air quotes, Gnostic kind of thing, but just like the stuff is laying about and we just don't recognize it.
Ironically, I was thinking of Gnostic.
Don't use a fancy word.
Yes.
But it's like more like hidden tools to me sometimes is more like stepping on the rake and like right up in your face. And it's like it really wasn't hitting that hard. It was really not that hard to find. We just have trained ourselves to look past it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing we're talking about, is not instead of like I was up on the mountain with a guru last night, and let me tell you this wisdom I brought. It's like, no, I actually walked across my living room and I found this thing, and I think, wow, why didn't I think of that before?
Well, and the funny thing is, I think those are those moments in life when you share that with somebody. Sometimes you make a better connection, with something more common that you have found hidden in everyday life than if you were like, I would like to share with you this. Deep
it's more
wisdom.
Relatable. So it's an everyday event rather than this cryptic wisdom. And you as a person are more relatable because, you're like, hey, I'm not like the world expert on this. I might be just a couple steps ahead of you, but this is what I figured out. And sometimes that's even better. It's like I don't have time to put my head, and that's even aside curse of knowledge and stuff and how the geniuses don't actually think like amateurs anymore. So we're amateurs. So hopefully you won't strain your brain trying to keep up with
Man,
us.
I hope some of you got that.
Curse of knowledge? Okay, we'll get back. Don't worry about that. All right.
But it was a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah, but...
It is. It's a curse.
But only the Gnostics would get it.
My jokes are a curse. All right. So one of the first tools we want to talk about, actually the very first tool, the first tool ever discussed on Full Mental Bracket is about to be discussed in 3 seconds. It is looking at your life as an epic story. Epic. Now, you don't have to do the California, like, epic, dude, but you can. You get bonus points for style.
Yeah.
If you do that.
I definitely am thinking more like, bum, bum, bum.
Oh, okay. Surfboard's optional, but soundtrack.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, see, why do you think that's important? Actually, let's go back to the beginning. Back to the basics. I'm sorry. I was going to break into song, and that's not necessary. It's too early. It's episode 1. I'm not going to do that.
I know. I had a song.
Got to save something.
I always have a song.
Was it back to the basics of the
hip-hop scene? No way. That's ridiculous.
All right, we got some loose some lyrics and a couple mics.
Oh my gosh.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right, so once again, that was unprompted and unscripted. So, have you ever wondered or considered why we still have stories? We have all this fancy technology. We have all this cool data stuff. We got spreadsheets and stuff, and yet we're still obsessed by story.
Yeah. I mean, just the other day, I was with a group of people, and this was like supposed to be a short, like on the way to the car conversation. And suddenly...
Do you have trouble with those?
I do.
Okay.
I really do. Yeah. People wonder why I'm like right on time. It's because I get hooked into people's stories, and I might have a few of my own. But yeah, every person had a story, and every person was engaged. They could all relate. And it was like, at that moment, you could see people, they were getting closer right in front of my eyes.
Stories are like that. They hook you. A good story will hook you.
Yeah. My favorite part, as we were preparing for this, was to be thinking in terms of story is, and this is kind of where I am going to find myself leaning into some of my expertise, but I have seen this to be true with the work that I do, but people, they unfold stories, and it very much seems to be the operating system at which our brain operates.
I
or
agree.
with which our brain operates.
I agree. I came across some idea somewhere that the story is the native format of the brain.
I love that.
And it's like a lot of smart people in theology and science and other fields are like, okay, let's separate the facts from the story, and then they reiterate this dry, boring stuff, and then you fail the test because they took out all the fun stuff. All of the grease and the cholesterol and the flavoring and the MSG out,
Yes.
and like, here's your protein bar. It's like, there was a reason why it was in there in the first place.
Yeah.
That's how we remember stuff.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Yes, memory.
Yes.
Stories help people remember.
I was thinking your stories need to be fat, but maybe yours is probably more helpful than mine.
But if you think about it, when people are sharing a story, it helps them disclose information easier. You know, when I'm listening to somebody, sometimes they're telling me something that's really intense, and I just have to take a step back and go, wow, in my mind, of course. I don't take a literal step back. That would be strange.
We got to try that sometime. You say something, I'll jump back. Wow!
But I take a step back in my mind, and I'm like, this person is sharing something really intimate with me, and wow, they're trusting me with this, and I can see that it's just so much easier as they're unfolding it in story, as opposed to just giving me like this information.
Right.
Like, let me tell you what happened. They're like, let me tell you how this happened and how this occurred within my life. And
because it also gets the emotions, it ties into their own history and their own personal narrative. You know, as opposed where you're trying to do it all abstract.
Yeah.
Well, on Tuesday, I exhibited this. Like, no, just throw it out.
Now, some people that are not ready to share their story may be very flat, like they're reading an encyclopedia or something.
But I think that's a good point. I mean, stories build relationships. Stories bind people together. They exchange not just information, but trust. I like the way that you said that. It was an expression of trust. I'm going to share this story with you. I'm going to share a piece of my life. And when you absorb the story, you actually feel like you have a piece of their life now.
Yes.
You know them better because of the story.
You know, I don't know if I'm skipping here, but
skip away.
When someone tells a story and you're engaged with their story, you know, they feel a sense of validation. They feel like my story means something to someone.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. It's like, it's not only is it just, hey, it's okay that happened, but it's like you're not alone. So many times. So there are 8 billion people on this planet, and yet at least 3 times a week I feel I'm all alone. This has never happened to another human being in all of history. Only I have had to deal with this moderately low inflation in my tire on my way to work. It's like, oh, my first world problems. I need a TV special to feel sorry for me. But no, it's quite common. But we forget that.
We do. And then what happens is you're telling the story, or someone's telling you a story, and it instills them with courage.
Yes.
Like they honestly feel like they could tackle whatever the next challenge is in their life. You may not even know what the challenge is.
It's inspiration. So, because I'm like, not only are you alone, but other people, not only have other people faced this situation, but other people have overcome the situation.
Yes.
Therefore, it's possible to overcome. Therefore, it's possible for you to overcome. And, hint to the foreshadowing, if you pay attention to the story, you can learn how they solve the problem and apply some of those tools.
Learn?
It's almost as if stories were tools for problem solving.
I see what you did there.
Oh.
Well, I do know that as story, I mentioned earlier that some people, they're not ready to tell their story in full, right?
Yeah.
So there does tend to be a maladaptive style of storytelling that seems to be, it helps them in the moment, but it really doesn't help them unpack or unfold or even share with the other person enough information for that relationship to be, can I use the word, I guess engaged is really a good word.
Well, what does that look like? What is a maladaptive story?
Maladaptive. So I'll go with the one that I thought of. What if someone hasn't really made a lot of sense out of some of the things going on in their life? And so when they tell their story, a lot of people have a hard time following it.
Okay.
And so it's pieces, it's fragments, and they don't even know what they feel. You know, they don't even know how to identify the feelings, and they sure don't know the good that could come out of the challenge that they're facing.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, besides the format of stories being sticky to the brain, what makes the format of story, one of the things, besides the emotional appeal, is that the events follow a logical order. This happened,
yes.
Then this happened, because of this, then this happened.
Yes.
And if you haven't had that, if you haven't done that sense making, if you haven't actually sat there and thought about what happened to you and make some sort of story out of it and make some sense out of it, then I imagine it would just come out, just random facts in no particular order. It's like, do you understand? Not really.
Yeah. I've heard people tell stories like there are a variety of support groups. Over the years, I've heard people tell a story, and then I've come back maybe a month later, and I've heard that person telling the story again. And it's interesting because people that are ready to tell their story, they have something to share with the world. It seems to be pretty consistent from one sharing to the next, right? One delivery to the next. Where somebody that has a fragmented story, it's almost like you hear all these different versions because they're still working it out.
Yeah.
So
this might be a good point. Although we have established that we're not gurus, we do have specific experiences and backgrounds, and this might be a good point to mention that Paul is a therapist and works with people as opposed to animals or whatever might need therapy. Plant therapist. I'm a plant therapist. I let Miracle Grow do most of the work.
Yes. And I mean, you're going to hear that.
Right.
However, I am learning just like anybody else, especially about story. I mean, this is a new dimension, a brand new area of study for me.
And I am a storyteller. I've done comedy and video and blogs and writing and fiction and nonfiction and creative nonfiction that was almost true but not quite because I exaggerated it so horribly. And I produce, edit video and do different things. And it's all about putting stuff in the package of story. And I tell tons of stories. You can ask my family. Please stop. They'll say, please, this is not story time. Like, but every time is story time.
So I'm hoping, I don't know what you'll get out of this, but I'm hoping like in a year or two after, you know.
My family's hoping that you'll cure me of my storytelling. And then we all go home happy.
Well, the other day I was doing, and I thought it was a fantastic metaphor, and concrete metaphor, an illustration, you know, something, a didactic lesson. And it really was. I thought, man, this is spot on. And I was setting it up, and I was explaining the theory, and I was looking at the room, and they were kind of like, yeah, staring. They didn't seem engaged, and I thought, I wonder if this needs a story. So I put what I was trying to explain, I put it into a story. And it was all of a sudden, I was like, oh man, I could totally relate, Suddenly, boom.
The lights come on.
Yeah, it was, I was just like, okay. I think that in some way, shape, or form, I have not realized how important the story was.
And this comes back to the tools hidden in plain sight, right? The discovery, right? So this is, you see all these articles from like Harvard Business Review. Hey, executives, interrupt your PowerPoint with a story. Like, you think that'll work? Like, I think that you're literally boring people to death. We had to carry somebody out in an ambulance. Please stop. Put a story in or two. Not that I've been through a lot of business meetings. I have.
Yeah. I tell you what, I have heard so many things about these business meetings that they go on for hours and hours, and there's no meaning to them. I mean, I think that they basically say everything that needs to be said is said within the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, wow, one of the reasons is because there is no connection between the people, right? So there's one person running the show, and nobody's exchanging. I mean, we're talking about story, but nobody's exchanging their own experiences in any way, right? It's just, this is the way it's going to be. This is the way we want it.
It's a download of information.
Yeah.
Sit here and we'll plug you in.
Yeah. It's interesting because you could actually create an environment if you allowed people to share their own experience. It would create meaning with everybody in the meeting, and they wouldn't feel like it was a waste of time.
But if you didn't want their experience, then this is the common criticism in the business world. This could have been an email.
Yeah,
we didn't all have to gather here so that you could flap your gums and none of us would interact. But other than business, I think story can actually affect your life as well in good positive ways outside of business, although inside of business. I think there's multiple ways.
Yes.
So, for instance, I would think that seeing your life as an epic, engaging story changes many things, and we're going to get into them. But I'll list them for you first, just so you can pay attention for those keeping score at home. It changes how you see yourself. It changes how you see the purpose of your daily life. It changes how you see others in your life. It changes how you see failure and tragedy. It changes how you see your struggles. And it changes how you see the end goals of your life.
Ooh.
That's a lot of weight to carry for one tool.
It is.
It's like a Swiss Army knife.
I was going to say, it's definitely a multifaceted tool right there.
Swiss Army knife.
Wow. Yeah. So when I think about story, I think about all the movies that I've watched that when I sit down at the end of this movie, I feel like getting up and being like, I think I can go and conquer the world, or I can go and do, and I think about what in the world is that? Well, there's something in the story that I relate to. There's some character. So if somebody was to ask me what my favorite movie was,
tell me.
I've got a couple, but at the top of the list is The Matrix.
That's a good movie.
Yeah,
I like that movie a lot.
I was that guy. There might have been a period of time that I watched it every day for months, or at least part of it, in between homework because I was in college. And I think every time I watched it, I found something. We talk about hidden, right?
Yeah.
Man, I was digging away at this thing. I don't even know if the writers or the producers even knew how much there was. And some people thought I was crazy and said it wasn't intended to have that much. And I'm like, well, maybe there was some divine inspiration.
I like it. I think The Matrix is a great movie. It has like all the food groups. You've got karate, and you've got robots, and you've got kung fu, and you've got sci-fi and brain transference, and cool cyber clubs and leather pants and just it's like you're throwing like it's like you're going like one of those cooking shows. You have 12 ingredients, make a thing. Yeah. They're like, okay, here's your leather pants, here's your robots, here's your cubicle drudge, here's your like, what can you make out of that?
Yeah.
Like,
and then there was new technology. Like I think they were the ones that pioneered.
Invented the bullet time.
Yeah, the bullet time.
They couldn't actually do it in video. I think, if I recall correctly, they had a series of still cameras and they went and they stitched it together in a movie.
Yeah, because I mean, I just I remember it. Memory recall. Man, it was like I remember when Trinity goes up for that kick. And I remember the first time I'm like, what? What's happening? How did they do that?
And I think that, and one of the ingredients is a little bit of wish fulfillment. Look at this. I know karate. Look at this. Anybody I don't like, cops, soldiers, bosses, I'll just kung fu punch them. And it's like, that's a tempting option.
I know.
Tell me more.
I know. I think it definitely appealed to people that would love that easy button in life.
Well, I tell you what, let's take The Matrix and let's look at our different elements of story that we just talked about.
Yes, let's do it.
Shall we do that? All right. So, seeing your life as an epic story changes how you see yourself.
Yes.
So, a word that we've thrown around, it's a long word, but it's not dirty. Protagonist. When you become the protagonist of your story, you're not passive. You're not a victim. You're not sitting on the couch.
Yes.
You are the one driving the story. Neo is the one that's searching for the Matrix. He's up all night typing away, hacking away. He's searching and trying to find stuff. And that's even before the story began.
Right. I think that we can relate to all that because he's sitting there, he's living this dull existence. And there's something not right. He senses something.
Right.
He wants to be a part of something bigger.
But even after the story starts and he kind of gets joining with the crew, the protagonist is resourceful. The protagonist is driven. The protagonist is motivated. The protagonist is the one, like, if they're captured by terrorists, the protagonist is the one that squirreled away a plastic butter knife and is sawing away at the ropes because I'm not going to take this line down. Okay. Because for other elements, there's a bigger picture, there's a ticking clock. I can't just sit here. I have to drive the story forward.
Right.
And I think that's a key part of being a protagonist that sometimes, I can't speak for everyone, but myself, it tends to get left out. Like, I'm just going to feel sorry for myself on this couch, and this problem will resolve itself, and then after a month, it hasn't resolved itself because no one's protagging.
You know what I like about us unpacking this right now is Neo had the qualities of a protagonist, and yet he really wasn't going anywhere yet.
Right.
So, in many ways, even though his existence was dull and meaningless, he was driven by that sense that there's more.
And ultimately, he had to make a choice of his identity. And it comes up over and over in the movie. Are you William Anderson, cubicle jockey, or are you Neo, the chosen one? And the whole movie basically comes down to that choice and how he initially has to choose. Like they put him in the whole Gestapo thing, and he's in the police thing, and he's like, I'm not Anderson. I'm Neo.
Yeah.
And then it's not really real until they're fighting around with the train and all that stuff. But you see the question come back again, and as he has more experiences, as he has more story, it keeps coming back to that. It keeps circling back to that over and over again.
I think it's worth repeating that there are some people out there, unlike Neo, who are living the dull existence, and they're not engaging in any way. Where he is, I suppose he's searching for meaning. So he's becoming a hacker. He's providing, all kinds of hacking services. He's exploring. He's trying to find something, right? And in many ways, it's almost like the pre-protagonist.
Right.
It's like having those qualities of trying.
Yes, to continue pushing forward.
Yeah. So
I didn't make up the word protagging. I think we stole that from another podcast. But it's a good word.
I think we're probably going to use it a lot.
Writing excuses if you're listening to this. We stole your word. We dare you. We'll meet you by the flagpole. So another thing that seeing your life as an epic story is it instills a sense of purpose.
Yes.
Into your daily existence. Yeah. Instead of like, I got to get up and go to work and eat my oatmeal and just go through the grind over and over again, it calls out to this larger purpose that informs and gives significance to what you do.
Yes. And that I can relate to that. Not even in the context of a movie, but in the context of my faith, even very young, just realizing, okay, I do have a purpose. It gave me the drive that I needed to overcome quite a few obstacles in my early years.
As we were talking this through, you kept asking me, well, what's your drive to people get off the couch and stop being a victim, and why you always see it from one side? And I'm going to answer you that question.
What?
It's because I had
here?
I had a wave. So I have multiple waves. So I did, growing up, I kind of felt like a victim and I didn't do anything. And as a result of that, I made some questionable decisions and joined the Marine Corps and traveled the world and had some combat experiences. And then as we would tell stories, the goal was to survive alive and have a boring job and to get fat and happy and to be as boring and normal as possible. The goal, the dream, was my life is so boring. And as I'm literally driving like a truck at 4 a.m. across the freeway, there'll be like a light on, and like, oh, that lucky guy, he's home with his wife, and they're getting up and they're having a boring day, and here I am driving 6 hours on this stiff thing to go march and climb a mountain and stuff. So when I got there, I was in no hurry to leave. And then there's a second round. It's like, hey, so I already had an adventure, man. I went to Mordor and back. I'm good, man. My ring is fried. I'm done. It's like, but do you think it's over? Are you just going to sit here until you die? Like a hospice, like palliative care? You're just going to sit here and be comfortable until the credits roll? And I'm like, well, it sounded good until you mentioned it like that, and now I'm starting to think about it.
Yeah.
So like you have a second act and a third act and a fourth act, and you're like, hey, there's another adventure. Who knew?
Yeah, we don't thrive in comfort.
No.
People...
But you wouldn't know that from the marketing.
Right?
You have a problem. You're not comfortable enough. Stretchies helps you. You're tired of stretching your own arms? Stretchies will stretch your arms for you. And your legs, too, if you act now.
But they knew this. The writers of The Matrix knew this.
Yeah.
Right? Because they even wrote into the script, like, the first Matrix was too comfortable.
Too comfortable. There was no challenge. There was no adversity.
Yeah.
And people were like, this sucks. And
right.
Whole crops were lost.
Yeah.
The whole thing. That's a really terrible accent. Anyway. So part of in The Matrix, Neo he takes the pill, he joins the crew, and suddenly his life has a bigger purpose. He's on a mission to free minds and fight machines.
Yeah. I think it might have taken him a minute to get there. Right. Holy moly.
Well, we're not saying that he got there. It's just like, but from the moment he joined up, he had so before he joined up, his goal was get back to work on Monday and try not to get fired. Right. And then as soon as he joins the story, his goal is we have to save humanity. And suddenly there's this purpose that gives him.
Yeah.
That kind of goes, and so, when he wakes up and eats stale porridge and sleeps on a hard bed, which is, we're skipping ahead to some of our next points, there was meaning to it.
Yeah, yeah.
His life arguably got worse. He's on a comfortable bed, no computer stuff. He's eating stale porridge. These guys don't look like they've had a shower anytime recently, It's not like he leveled up in this comfortable penthouse or something.
Man, you're really minimizing the porridge. It had everything the body needed.
That's what we're told. That's what we're told.
Well, not everything.
All right. So, okay. All right. Bravely holding to the organizational content of this episode, waving the flag in this face of chaos.
I feel like I'm doing pretty good at
you are
making it feel a little more organic.
Eye-glancing? I feel it's highly ironic. It's kind of scary and ironic that I have to be the organized one because that is not my skill by a long shot.
I think we're doing great,
We're
Brent.
doing great. All right, so
we have a purpose.
One more time for our listeners. Listeners, in case you were unclear or on the fence, we are doing great. Remember that.
We have a purpose.
Write that down.
There's a meaning behind the suffering.
Yes. Great. Yes. We care about you so much, audience. We're giving you some suffering so you can find some meaning because we're just that generous. No, we're not. This is great.
I think we're on to the willingness to involve others.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, oh, man. And this is big.
This is big.
I think it's one of the biggest.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, there's steps to get there.
Yes.
But it's definitely a big part of story.
Well, and I think because you find your tribe, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes there are some branches of story that minimalize this. You know, a lot of people, myself included, like the action hero who's the lone wolf and stuff, and he's like all by himself. But not only that horribly unrealistic on a logistical sense, it's not mentally healthy, it's not socially healthy. And even Batman has Alfred and Lucius Fox and his whole people behind the scenes.
Yes, I was going to say, if you really dissect the story, that Lone Ranger, or the Lone Wolf, they're disillusioned actually, and they're actually not really seeing a clear picture of how they got to where they are.
I think that those kind of stories appeal to people who are kind of disconnected. Like, so see, I don't have to get connected. I could just get a big gun and solve all my problems. It's like, I don't think that's really creating larger problems, maybe.
Yeah. So we mentioned this story earlier. We said that it motivates people, right, to face challenges. I would actually say that incorporating relationships into your journey is also a challenge.
Yeah, it's true. It doesn't come easy.
Yeah, it doesn't come in easy because there's so many. It adds, dare I say, it adds a set of problems, but the benefit far outweighs the problems. And so it's really, I think that as a protagonist is taking a look at his or her team, I think that there's the stories of others can help people to strengthen that willingness.
Oh, yeah, but how people recruited their team, how people found their tribe can help. Yeah. Because I think you're absolutely right. I think it's like, hey, listen, I don't got time for this. I have to save humanity and free their minds. I don't have time to negotiate this conflict with you. Get on board with me. It's like, well, actually you do.
Yeah.
And there's a scene like that in The Matrix.
Yeah, and I hate to step in, but I saw this reluctancy too, right? Because you have to think he's not quite sure how he's fitting into this team.
Right.
He's like, am I the one? I'm not even sure. I mean, Morpheus says I am, and then the Oracle says I'm not. God.
And this is before gaslighting was a thing, and now you're like, wait a minute, someone's setting me up for failure here.
Yeah. But, see, the way I look at it is it's effectiveness over being right. The Oracle knew what she had to say in order to move him in a certain direction. Right? So, without getting too much off track.
So the Oracle is part of the team, too. Oracle is part of the tribe.
Yes, indeed. And I think that his willingness to listen, he was definitely listening to Morpheus.
Yeah,
he had some reluctancy, but he still was listening, right? He wouldn't have taken the red pill.
That's right.
Right? So yeah, I think that gathering allies and assembling the team and leaning on people who are definitely providing you with resources. I mean, people are resources.
Correct.
Yeah. But the relationship itself also helps.
Strengthens you.
Yeah.
It reinforces what you're doing.
Exactly.
For any sort of important work, any important tool, any important anything, you have mounts, multiple mounts, and they're reinforcing each other, and they keep things from falling apart.
Yes.
Which is a very boring and non-specific metaphor that I just pulled out of my head. On the lone wolf thing, I think one of my favorite scenes from the whole Matrix movie is like, and then you got Neo. He's like giving this diatribe. He's giving this whole, not diatribe, but he's giving this whole monologue about why he has to be the lone wolf. It's like, Morpheus did what he did because he believed something. well, I believe something. I believe I can get him back.
It's not bad.
Thank you. And she's like, you can't go. He turns to Trinity. You can't go. I'm a lone wolf. And my hair stands up on my head every time I think about it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I believe. And
Yep.
It's just like, I am the ranking officer on the ship. He means more to me than you. You just got here, and you need my permission to go back. And if you don't like it, tough.
Supporting.
Like, all right. Yeah, that's. I guess I was poorly considered my lone wolfness. Let's all go as a team.
There's a name for this type of supporting protagonist. No,
No, yeah, you're right. It's
you told me about it.
I told you about it.
It's that supporting
adversarial ally.
There it
the
is.
adversarial ally.
Thank you.
They're like, they seem like they're fighting you, but they're really on your side.
Yes.
And basically what they're doing is they're just poking holes in your arrogance and flaws in your plan. Ooh. I'm going to do this all by myself. And it's like, have you thought that through? You're the bad guy. And it's like, no, you're not. I'm the guy who's preparing you to meet the bad guy, because if you met him now, he would smack you with a backhand.
I feel like that role is just as important as the team.
I think so too. I mean, that's the thing of like real relationships and real friendships. Can you give hard advice? Can you give difficult feedback? You know, and I wouldn't put myself as a expert or anything, but as I'm flipping through social media and stuff, I see this whole thing. Can you believe someone said something bad to me? Now we're not friends anymore. And it's like, well, I don't know very much about you, but it seems like that really needed to be said really badly. And it probably should have been said 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're gonna cut ties to anyone that tells you the truth, you're not going to get very far.
Ooh, man.
But I think that's the real drive today. And with our technological bubbles, you can do that.
That's good stuff.
Any facts you don't like, you can mute them. Any person that says something you don't like, you can mute them. Friend that tells you a hard truth that tries to sharpen your iron, like, oh, you're dead to me, I've canceled you, or whatever. And it's like, you gotta have, hey, so this is a hidden tool hidden in real life. It's like you have to be intentional about growing and developing, and you got to know that that's going to require some difficulty or some adversity. It feels like that should be a point that we're going to mention in a few minutes.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, okay. So we're talking about story as a tool, and there is something that happens to everyone at some point in life. There's either you lose a loved one, you experience something tragic, there's something traumatic that happens. It's a part of being a human.
Yeah.
And in my line of work, I've noticed that people, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to try to dissociate from the trauma. And as a matter of fact, sometimes they may do that for quite some time because they're just not ready to deal with the trauma. And then there comes a time, almost like Neo, you know, there's just that there's something that has to be done. Something has to be done. I cannot live this existence anymore. And
there's a breaking point.
There is a breaking point. And so at some point, I feel like story, when you see your life through the lens of story and you realize that you're at a stuck point, it helps you to see your tragedy and your trauma as an obstacle that's keeping you from your goals.
That's good.
Yeah. And so I think about Neo. Well, actually, I think of Cypher. It's the right character, right?
Yeah.
Why, oh, why didn't I take the blue pill?
Right. That's the voice of being fat and happy.
There it is.
Like, why did I sign up for the military? I could be fat and happy.
Yes.
In that house at 4 a.m.
And that dude went back in. Well, actually, we don't know how that happened, do we?
That's a kind of a plot hole. It's really kind of. I don't fully understand that either.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, he had every intention of going back in.
Yes.
And so you have to think at some point. I'm sure Neo was faced with that. You know, think twice before getting lattes. The milk.
Well, I mean, to sidetrack to like a different story, think about like Star Wars: A New Hope, right? So Luke gets recruited by Obi-Wan, who talks to him for like a couple days, and then gets killed, and is like, okay, hey, kid, the adventure's all on you now. I'm just this crazy voice in your head that makes you think you're insane, but you're going to have to face everything by yourself now.
Oh, man.
It's like, are you going to spend a couple years getting therapy to deal with that? Or are you going to move on? And you probably should, but in this movie, Luke said, no, let's blow up some Death Stars, which is really sounding more and more like a terrorist the more I keep describing it in this fashion.
Man, Brent, you just fell into the therapy hole.
Uh-oh.
That's true therapy would help somebody to work through that, right?
Is there an escape? Is there a ladder or something? I'm just out of curiosity. I just want to know before we get any deeper.
Oh, no, we're going to make fun of therapy
Abandon
later.
all hope.
We're going to make
you enter.
Yes, yes. No, I'm just but going back, I mean, all that suffering that Neo was going through.
Yeah.
Right? It was worth it.
In
to
the
him.
end.
Yeah. In the end, it was worth it. All that was worth it. And so for him to see the trauma, to see the tragedy, I mean, he lost people.
But sometimes that takes time. That's something that's come up in my life and in my family. It's like, it's too soon. It's too soon for comforting platitudes. This is still fresh. I'm still bleeding. Don't tell me it's going to be all right. At least wait for the bleeding to stop before you say it's going to be all right. Good point. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For some people, and again, I think this is kind of where we let people define these stages, right? Including this idea of success, of overcoming.
Yes.
Because we can't tell you. We can't tell you if you're stuck pining for comfort, in the happy life, because you might just be letting your wounds heal.
Right.
Right. But again, I want to bring up this concept that I don't know why it's sticking out to me, but it's the protagonist attitude.
Yes.
Right? You can be healing, and perhaps you're not moving mountains yet.
Right.
But as you're healing, you still have this protagonist mindset.
Thinking about planning it out.
Yeah.
Seeing what you can do.
Right.
If you're blocked in one area, go in a different area.
Yeah. Exactly.
I like that. That kind of ties into the whole story concept of try, fail cycles.
Yes.
It's like where you okay, this is our plan. We're going to go right down the middle. And then you meet resistance in the middle and you go to the side and you halfway accomplish the plan. Did you do what you said you were going to do? No, you failed. But did you move a little bit closer to the goal? Yes, and you succeeded. So it's more of this no and yes, but. Yes, you made it, but it's a whole improv thing. And if you go back and look at a good movie, you'll see it over and over again. It's we did this and it failed. And we ran to the side hallway and then we fell into this big pit and then we did this. And then it's just they continue to try and fail, but they're slowly failing forward.
Yes, 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 yes. Nobody makes the first jump.
Nobody makes the first jump.
Right.
Where are we?
Well, I remember just because I had never looked at this scene the way that you talked about it when we were preparing, and that is they go to rescue Morpheus, and they are hit with lots of obstacles. Like if their plan would have gone according to the plan, Morpheus would be on the helicopter and they'd be out. But there's this whole process, right? And it keeps you on your toes.
Yes.
And then you see Morpheus. He's struggling, right? He's becoming the protagonist.
Yeah.
In his mind, right?
Right.
And which is a big part of being in the Matrix, right? And realizing that those rules don't apply.
And I think pause right here. So in a story, in a movie, in a big capital S story, there is a protagonist. But in life, the whole point we're kind of covering is that we're all the protagonists.
Yes.
And so Morpheus had to find his protagonist moment.
Yes.
And then when Trinity says, "Oh no, you don't," he's like, "I'm not like this helpless love interest saying whatever you say, big guy." He's like, "I don't think so.
Yes.
This is my ship, and you're not going without my say." Everyone was sort of protagonist.
Yes.
Except maybe Cypher. Oh, poor me. I want to go back. I want my pill. There's a lesson in there.
Yes, there is.
Carry on.
No, but I see that try-fail cycle, which, this is easier said than done. Nonetheless.
Right, it looks great in hindsight when you're watching someone else's story.
Right. I think we're going to say that a lot in this podcast. Yeah. Everybody else's adventure looks.
But that's the real power of the that's the real deepest, on the deepest level, I feel like this is the real power of the story, is that you are getting smacked in the face with something terrible that you feel is unique to you. You can look at story and go, oh, this is a standard plot element. I need to get past this to do this. This has happened to everybody. The fact that it's here means that I'm living an awesome story.
Yes.
If it wasn't here, then I'd be like that guy on the hillside at 4 a.m. on the light and not having a great adventure in the military like I was. It wasn't, I don't know, great. Your definition of great may vary. That particular adventure wasn't all that much fun. But anyway, it's the same principle. It's like when you see story, you can distance yourself, some sort of personal or psychological distance from the events of your life, and see it in a framework of universal struggle of mankind, and womankind, and personkind.
See it more objectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see that scene. Morpheus, he finally
he busts those handcuffs with his bare hands.
That's it. He busts.
I mean, he's no one, but he's pretty good. He's like a half or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's
right.
2 or something. You're the 2. You could break handcuffs.
It's pretty awesome.
He is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, I always related to Morpheus a little more than Neo, but nonetheless, we're talking about Neo. So he goes, they're like, let's go, Morpheus. And then he takes off, and you're like, oh, man, is that bullet about to hit? Oh. Because he's not going to make it.
Right. But, what it does is that kind of takes us into our next point, is that by seeing your life as a story, your failures and your adversity, you see them differently.
Right.
Instead of an offense. How dare this thing happen to me?
So I'm picturing the inside. I don't know. That'll probably be our slant here. I was always thinking about, like, what's the person thinking on the inside. So I can see a stark difference between somebody who's not a protag, right? They're a victim.
Right.
Right. I can see Neo if he had a victim mentality. He's watching from the helicopter, and he's like, "Oh, great. Well, there goes that mission."
Well, I tried.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just go have to be the one without him or something,
Right? Ooh, man. There's a link that I didn't even expect.
What's that?
Right? Well, within Neo's story, or his narrative that he was putting together, Morpheus was a big part of it. And it drove him.
Right.
It drove him. He's like, he's not going to make it. All right. We got to try something.
Yeah, and he did.
He did.
So think about I was thinking about, some of the adversities and hardship that Neo faces. He fails the jump test.
Yep.
He struggles to fight with Morpheus. He gets bad news instead of hope from the Oracle.
Yep.
He watches his friends die. He loses his mentor. Learns that Zion is doomed. Everything goes wrong, but he doesn't quit. He keeps going forward and uses these things to learn and grow and to make an important breakthrough. Because, I believe I can save him. Like, the thing is, it's not like if you look at it from a storyteller point of view, it's not that just those things are things he overcome to have this revelation. Those are the things that drove him to that revelation.
That's right.
That brings us to our transformation point. It's like you need this adversity if you are going to actually change who you are.
Exactly.
Which is much easier to say. I'm looking at you. You need this adversity to change who you are. You keep your own adversity yourself, because I'm awesome the way I am. I don't need to change her.
Yes, I'm the one that needs to learn here. That's what this show's about. Put me in my place.
No, I'm just once again empathizing with people. They're like, "How dare you? You mock my pain. Never do it again." It's like, no. We're talking. When we talk about story, it makes sense. When we talk about our own life, it's like, oh, that really hurts. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, I watched an unnamed movie for reasons. At the very end, one of the characters has this opportunity or possible opportunity to go back into the past to change everything, right? And the person in charge of traveling through time says no, because everything he just did to save the world happened because of everything he experienced.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I think we talked about this a little bit. It's like, I lived my whole life. From youngest age, I've been a raving science fiction fan, right? Every time travel trope, I know it. Most of the movies, most of the stories, I've read them, the books and stuff. And as not being really happy with the story my life was taking as a teenager and a 20-something, and even after I was married and started a family, I was still like, this could be a lot better. And I instinctively said, if I had a time machine, I would do this. If I had a time machine, I would do this. If I had a time machine, I would go back and tell 8-year-old me, if I had a time machine, I'd find that bully and smack him right in his face. And then it wasn't until literally within like the last year, it dawned on me, if you had a time machine, you would not have learned any of those lessons. You'd come back from the past a flippin' idiot and have to start as an old man and learn them all over again. And I'm like, well, be careful what you wish for. I'm so glad I didn't ever find that time machine.
Oh, me too.
I couldn't believe it because I've been thinking about this. I've been grinding this for decades, and suddenly, at the very end of the output, you don't want that. But I do. No, you don't.
You don't want the blue pill.
It stunned me. I'm like, I don't want a time machine?
Yeah. It's crazy, yeah.
And as we were talking about, our struggles are necessary for transformation. Yes. And transformation is another big word. But I mean, that's the thing, is like, the difference between the beginning of the story and end of the story is often a matter of identity for the protagonist. The protagonist requires the whole story to smack him around and beat him into shape until he's ready to change his identity to become a version of him that can actually solve the problem of the story.
Yes.
He wasn't ready, oftentimes due to wounds or difficulties or things he just doesn't want to deal with or she doesn't want to deal with.
Yeah. So looking at your life through the lens of story helps you to embrace the struggles.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Like we were saying, Neo said, hey, I'm on this great journey. And then he wakes up on a steel bed and eating porridge and cold and everyone's wearing rags. And it's like this. But we were going forward to this great thing.
Yeah.
But all that stuff was required to get to where he was.
Embrace the struggle. And you can see this within people's stories time and time again for as long as we can remember, right?
And I was slow to pick up on this. I have to keep reminding myself that every great story is a tale of transformation. Because I'm not always eager to transform. I'm eager to transform if you could do like the transform light.
Easy button.
Yeah, like here for 27 payments of $27.99, we'll transform for you with no adversity and no struggle.
And people are still falling for that. I mean, it's like diet and exercise, right? But yet they're still pitching magic pills and stuff.
This was me from the youngest age, Like, hey, Dad, you're great at playing basketball. How'd you get great at basketball? I just sat there and practiced for hours. Okay, well, if I wasn't going to do that, how would I also get great at basketball? And I lost one ball, I'm done. And I convinced my parents to buy like a weight bench.
Right.
And I had weights and stuff. And I still remember this. I was sitting there on the weight bench reading the Muscle and Fitness magazine, admiring all these guys. I spent more time admiring these guys, reading their nutrition thing than actually did the work.
Yeah.
I could work the stuff, but if I spend more money and dream more rather than actually do the work, and then I couldn't figure out why my arms were slim and I lacked muscle mass. I don't understand. I've been sitting on this bench forever. You'd think they would just pack on, but it did not.
So I don't mean to go off on a rabbit trail, but do you think this try and fail cycle, after failing so many times, somebody finally realizes they need to listen to the stories?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Because
this is not working.
Well, I mean, with a try-fail cycle is that, sometimes it gets worse, but then sometimes it gets better, and you can kind of see some progress. You're thinking on your feet, zigging and zagging left and right.
Yeah.
But if you just keep getting beat down and beat down and beat down, it might be time. It's not time to quit your story, but it might be time to go back to the drawing board.
Right.
Am I implying the right strategy? Do I need some more people on my tribe? What am I doing wrong?
So this would apply to whether or not you are actually trying to protag or if you're just trying to go the easy route.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to try the easy. I'm going to try the easy. Nope. Try the easy. Try the easy. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Or something just occurred to me is maybe instead of maybe you think you're trying to protag, but you're just being stubborn. You're just beating your head against the wall. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
This protagonist is painful. It's like, well, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. Avoiding the pain. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
so
we're coming up on a big one.
We are.
Yeah.
Because seeing your life as an epic story changes the end goal of your life. I mentioned before, when I was in the military, my end goal was to be fat and lazy and happy and never have another adventure. But once you see your life as an adventure, that's not good enough.
Right. And I would even say that even if you saw your life as having purpose, and this goes into a whole nother dimension of what we're talking about, is you may get to the end of a season or a chapter, I guess is what we need to say.
Yeah.
And that purpose was fulfilled.
Yes.
Well, then what?
Well, I mean, I think if I'm following you, that it's perfectly normal to have a season of rest, a season of recovery before the next adventure.
Right.
That's something that's kind of missing out of these blockbuster movies. It's like, hey, we defused a bomb. Oh, there's another bomb, a bigger one. Oh no, now the Earth is being destroyed by aliens, and these guys are sprinting the whole time. And that makes it unrealistic. But the realistic thing is that there's a season, and then you rest, you recuperate, you take a vacation maybe, you consolidate, you reflect on what you've gained and what it means before you launch into the next adventure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just this headlong race, and you don't ever appreciate where you're at. You don't ever understand where you're at. You don't really understand what you're doing because you're just trying to achieve this goal. Which goes back to our defining success. If you're just trying to achieve one goal and your relationships and your emotional health and everything else gets thrown to the side, then you're not really being successful.
Right. Yeah, so it's that expectation. There are more chapters.
Yes. So sometimes you do have to pace yourself without quitting protagging.
Yeah. And when you fulfilled a mission, so to speak, or you've ended a chapter of your life, there's something about bringing back to your community the formula or the what some people may call the elixir. Bringing it back to the community.
Well, and I like that point because it points out that on a big story like a hero's journey kind of quest, it was never really about the protag. It wasn't always about the protag.
Yes.
Like I need to go and find my fortune. It was like the community needs something. There's a real problem.
Yes.
You know, like machines are harnessing people's brains. We need to do, there's a big problem that you need to do something about. It's not just like, I need to feel encouraged and empowered. And like, yes, that's a great side effect. But you go on the journey, you find the sword or the elixir or something amazing, and you come back with wealth, with wisdom, with treasure to share with others in your community. You bring the resources back.
You don't hoard it in the cave?
No, you bring the resources back.
Oh. Okay.
The people who hoard in caves are dragons, not generally the hero. Although that could be a great story, dragon as a hero, but not generally the hero of the story.
Right.
For just that reason.
Yeah. Well, you said antagonists are the heroes of their own story.
Well, I mean, think about this from The Matrix. You know, Neo doesn't just win for himself. He brings hope to the whole resistance. Mm-hmm. He changes the balance of power for all humans. You know, society was broken, and what he found helped to heal it.
Yeah, and you could see that. I think the writers did a great job of all the different characters began feeling hopeful.
Yeah.
And it encouraged them to have courage so that they could protag.
And I think it helps to heal the world. It's not, I think it'd be unrealistic that one person, one and done, I just fixed the whole world. But you did your part. You brought this thing back that encourages other protagonists and their story to help bring back their elixir to help further help the world. You're kind of reinforcing each other.
And this end result is unity, which I think we all, again, I think if I was to say story is the native operating system of the brain, perhaps unity is something that every soul longs for.
I think so. I don't know if I would. I mean, I think I don't want to be pedantic, but more of maybe a harmony versus a unity. Sometimes a unity is like we all must say the same note. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but just so people don't get confused.
You're redefining, you're defining unity as being not so much everybody doing the same exact thing.
Unity versus unison. We don't all have to be sounding the same note.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, but a connection, a unity as a connection of different parts coming together to form a whole.
Yeah.
A giant social Voltron. We all come together with our powers combined.
No, you didn't.
I did.
I literally saw one on Marketplace the other day.
Oh, man.
Yeah. $230. I so wanted to get it. I had 2 of them when I was young.
In case some members of our audience did not experience this, were too young to experience this, Voltron was a Japanese animation cartoon thing with you got when disaster struck, you got in your giant robot lion, and if your giant robot lion wasn't enough, your lions all merged together to become a giant robotic man made out of lions to punch.
A warrior, Brent.
A giant robotic man made out of lions.
A warrior.
Your right hand lion, your left leg lion. There was kind of like the center torso lion was kind of involved a lion butt at some point. I don't know. It was just kind of weird. And then the torso lion somehow got way huge, and then the arm lions were small, and to make it look like a person.
You're busting my childhood bubble right now.
It's like, I'm glad this is with pen and paper, because as an engineer, this would never fly. But anyway, I like that idea, though. It all comes together. As a kid, I thought that was great. Like, this is great because it's levels. It's like, I've got a lion, a mechanical lion. Oh my gosh, this lion is merging with the other lions. You know.
Yes.
Was there? I wonder if there's. If anyone in Japan is listening, what a multiple Voltron, multi-Voltron is made of Voltrons.
Dude, I totally thought that when I was young. I was like, I think I might have even tried it because I had 2, and I'm like, how can these fit together?
Oh, that'd be great. Oh man! Of course, they went on to do that with Power Rangers and stuff, where they could all merge up and stuff. So, because once you had Power Rangers was like, I'm getting off topic. Power Rangers was like the magnet of all the tropes. It's like, oh, we have to do Power Rangers season 15. What are we going to do now? Oh, let's time travel, swords, flutes, whatever. Let's bring something in here. What have we not done yet? Dinosaurs. Oh, dinosaurs! Yeah, give that man a raise. All right. So where are we doing? I think we're...
I almost feel like we could have stopped right after the Voltron bit.
Oh. If you're saying I went too far, that you're not the first person to say that.
I don't know.
All right.
I mean, are you wanting to...
Well, we do have takeaways. We want to end our episodes with takeaways so that people can chew on and think about things.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
No, let's do it.
Do we not trust our people to chew on and take away things?
No, I was thinking more so like we do trust them to have already taken away.
Oh, then we don't need to spell it out for them.
If we can do it quick.
Okay.
Let's roll it.
Go ahead.
Me?
You're the one, rush it.
All right. So, I mean, it almost seems like a little bit of homework, right? So if you're listening, the question is, okay, I said earlier, like if I was to pick a movie,
right,
one of my top movies that I feel like I can relate to, there's all kinds of parts of the Matrix that I just align with.
Right.
But like we just found out, I align with Voltron. Didn't really have a voice in that. Brent does not align with Voltron.
I'm being painted as anti-Voltron forces here, and that is not true.
It's okay. I'm just playing. However, if you don't align with the Matrix, what stories do you align with?
We want to know.
Yeah. Really, I think it'd be fantastic. You know, we can bring them up.
Yes. And if any specific element of that we went over all these different, if one of them appeals to you, your identity or your adventure or your adversity, which ones stick out to you? We want to know.
Yeah. Or maybe we weren't clear on one of them. Let us know.
It's possible.
I mean, we're trying to be humble enough here.
So they should probably contact us at contact@fullmentalbracket.com.
Perfect.
That would be a great place to contact us. If you wanted to contact the Full Mental Bracket crew, never mind.
You want to say it, don't you? No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
What else? Do you want me to keep rolling through these?
Okay. I don't know. You just told me that we didn't need to overwhelm people, so
no,
we're kind of doing this on the fly here.
Nah, just...
This is the try-fail cycle. Like, we had a plan. It instantly went out the window, and then the window flinger turned to me. It's like, what's the plan? You just threw it out the window. You tell me what the plan is.
Oh, we're going to have to pay Brody extra to edit this.
Thank you, Bracketeers. There will be more episodes. We're going to launch a little mini-series on these elements to dig deeper into your identity as a protagonist, into your adventure, into the elixir, into all these different things. Yeah. So if you thought we were just skimming the surface, you were right.
And we in no way promote Starbucks, but we promote coffee in general.
Coffee is an elixir of sorts.
Absolutely.
One of our members, who goes by the name Paul, brought the elixir before he even started the adventure this morning.
That's right.
He was forward thinking.